In this video I'm going to make a small bowl. It'll just be a decorative bowl used for raku firing, and maybe do a little twist on the edges if it comes out good. Give it a little bit of decorative interest in addition in the form, in addition to the decorative raku glaze that will happen in the raku process. So we get it centered first. This clay's pretty stiff, so I'm having to put quite a bit of pressure on it. So I cone it up first, and then press it back down, bring it all into exact center. Watching centering is pretty boring, but if you try to open a piece before it's exactly in the center, the hole will not be centered in the piece of clay, and you will have one thick wall and one thin wall, and you will forever have a built-in wobble to the pot. Now I am ready to open this one up. To establish the bottom. And with a bowl, the bottom is not completely flat. So I'll show you in a moment when I compress the bottom after I get the thickness about right. I'll show you what I do to avoid making a right angle between the bottom and the wall of the pot, so that there's still a curve there like a bowl needs to have. So when I use the rib to compress the bottom of this pot, instead of putting this against this straight edge against the wall, I'm going to use the curved edge so that I still maintain a little curve on the inside of the wall where it meets the base. But still, I want to compress the bottom. And now check the thickness, and this hole won't remain here. And that's an acceptable thickness. I try to get these thin enough so that I don't have to do a lot of trimming later. Some I don't have to trim at all if I get the bottoms thin enough to begin with. The trimmed foot does look really good on pots, but it's a great time saver if you can make a nice flat foot that's the right thickness. And for these raku pots, I'm not too concerned about function because they won't be holding food or used a lot in the kitchen. Not used at all in the kitchen, actually. They're not for food. Raku pieces don't get fired like utilitarian stoneware. They don't, even though it's stoneware clay that I'm using, they won't get fired to a high temperature. They'll be fired very quickly, just enough to melt the decorative glaze. But not fired long enough to completely vitrify the piece, so it's not going to be for food. Now before I pull any height, I'm going to undercut a little and then start pulling. And then with a bowl, I don't really always try to pull straight up. I'm kind of pulling with attention to my inside hand to create that nice curve inside. that I can pull more straight up and then flare it out a little later on. So I don't really pull it in a bowl shape, except that I'm trying to create that inside curve. Till I get that bottom part of the wall to its desired thickness. Leaving that wall really thick makes a really heavy bowl, which we try to avoid. Now I can use the rib to smooth the inside and flare it out a bit. Still a little bit thick down there, so I'm going to thin it by pulling a little bit more. Pulling at that angle is always a little risky, but so far so good. And I want this one to be fairly open, since it's hopefully going to show off its nice raku glaze interior. We'll get the standing water out. Put a little bit of a swirl inside. You can press the lip. This is just a piece of tape. You can use a piece of leather for this, or a piece of plastic, or this piece of tape works quite well. I actually really like to use a little strip of chamois for this. And we're going to trim underneath on the foot just a little. Give it a little bit of a decorative twist on the edges. And run the wire under it, cut it loose from the bat, so that as it dries, it won't be stuck to the bat. And there we have it.